Hello everyone, thank you for joining us. Today, we are going to reveal a new product, a tool that will benefit Java developers and help boost their productivity in their day-to-day tasks. But before we get there, let us take you through some background and explain why and how we came up with this idea. My name is Mohamed. I am a Java developer and software architect. I wrote my first line of Java code back in 2007. And starting from 2010, I accumulated professional experience as a Java developer in various industries. In 2021, just after the release of Java 17, I also started the two open source Java libraries, Foporec and Gisel. Both of these libraries function as annotation processors. An annotation processor is essentially a library that offers a collection of annotations. These annotations can then be utilized within your code by applying them to various locations as needed. Since the introduction of annotations in Java, this became common practice. Today, we have a considerable amount of Java annotation processors, many of them offering hundreds of annotations. Now, as a Java developer, having to deal with that amount of annotations doesn't come without challenges. Let's show you a practical example with this code snippet you are looking at here. Let's say, as a junior Java developer, you are reading this code which is making use of the Hibernate framework, and then you come across the generated annotation. So, this being a new annotation to you as a junior Java developer, typically what you will do is jump to your web browser and make use of your search engine. Now, let's say you come to your search engine and then in a quick and lazy way, you just go ahead and enter generated like this. What you get as first search result is something that actually, as you can see, has nothing to do with the generated annotation or even programming. So let's say I think, okay, the search engine is smart enough to know that if I add just Java, I will get there. Now, with these new results, as you can see, we get something different. But are we really getting the generated annotation we are interested in? Let's see together. The very first result we get is the generated annotation from the Java X, which is part of Java 8. So that's definitely not what we need here. Next, we have a bunch of results returned here. And if we skim through the details really quickly, we can see that also Lombok offers the same annotation. Now, from all the other search results here, as you can see, we don't really have anything related to the generated annotation from Hibernate. Let's keep scrolling down and see. Now we have the generated annotation from Java 11. As we know, it's in all versions of Java. And somewhere here, finally, we get to find the generated annotation from Hibernate. And then we luckily have a direct link to the Java doc of that generated annotation, which is what we are actually looking for here. So as you can see, we finally get to find the Java doc page for the generated annotation from Hibernate, the one we were looking for. But then it took us a little bit of typing in the search engine in order to get more and more precise. And it also took us some scrolling. We had to skim through some of the search results in order to understand that this generated annotation is also offered by other libraries. And we have to scroll down to, let's say, the fifth or seventh or eighth entry in the search result list. So all of that, if you think about it, took us some time, right? A few minutes and very probably 5 minutes or more. Now, you might at the same time think, okay, there might be better ways to make use of a search engine to get straight to the results and, not having to waste time like I did and all. But it's fine. We all know that some programmer might outsmart others by knowing how to make use of tools such as search engines or even AI tools in order to get results and all. So because of those possible differences, we reached out to all Java developers worldwide online by sending them a survey. and asking their opinions about how they behave when it comes to researching information about annotations and related information. So we send them a bunch of questions, but here we're going to show you only the three most relevant ones. So from over 60 responses we received from all Java developers online, more than 55% of them confirm that they do make use of search engines to find information regarding annotations, actually just like we did now for the generated annotation. Now, if you remember, while researching the generated annotation, we also find out that two other libraries also offered annotations with the exact same name generated. Okay. Now, according to this chart here, as you can see, such a situation is a very common one because actually only 11% say that they do not face such situation. Now, regarding the overall time spent searching for an annotations documentation, only 27% say they spend less than 5 minutes. And even if we take into consideration the 11% you see here who say that they do not keep track, if we assume that they spend less than 5 minutes, we are still left with over 70% of the total amount of people spending more than 5 minutes every time they have to research one annotation. So imagine, for example, as a developer, you are building 4 hours for a task where you are dealing at the same time with around 10 annotations within the same code. So if you're going to be spending over 5 minutes for every single one of those annotations, you are already consuming over a quarter of your time, which definitely doesn't help with your productivity. Now, considering all of these challenges, along with the feedback we received from the developers, we were able to put together a set of requirements which led us to architect and implement our first cloud-based solution, and which we choose to name Java Annotations Repo, or JAPO for short. Behind JAPO lies an extensive database with the information of all annotations, along with their associated Maven artifact information as well. One very important feature JAPO offers is the ability to get the latest updated information on a daily basis, which means that whenever the new version of Hibernate, for example, is released, it will take up to 24 hours to see the update reflected in JAPO. All of the information from JAPO database can be searched through partial match queries so that you don't have to type in the entire name of the annotation or the artifact. One last interesting feature which will be very helpful not only to annotation users but also to custom annotations creators is the stats endpoint. This endpoint provides a great level of transparency regarding how annotations names are used or even searched across all existing Java libraries and projects. Let us summarize all these in three key advantages you gain by using JAPO. Offering flexible search options and instantly returning detailed information is what positions JAPO as a lightning-fast search tool for the Java developers. As we saw earlier when we were Googling the generated annotation, it could easily take 5 minutes or more to find the corresponding Java doc page. But with JAPO, a search will actually take a couple of seconds to return the same information and even with more details. Having the database consistently updated on a daily basis guarantees that for each annotation or artifact, the Java doc page URL will always remain current, ensuring that JAPO is a great up-to-date documentation tool for Java developers. And with the insights provided by the stats endpoint, JAPO becomes an essential decision-making tool for all Java developers struggling to choose names for their custom annotations. The current version of JAPO is available exclusively as a REST API. Additionally, we've designed a single web page created only to describe the API endpoint and allow some quick testing. Let's see how that works. So as we mentioned, JAPO is for now a REST API. This page you are looking at here is a very simplified one, only allowing you to enter values for the parameters that will be used while performing the REST API calls. So talking about endpoint, as you can see here, we have three main endpoints. There are a few others, and if you want to see them all, you just have to click on the Swagger Hub documentation link down here. Now, the most important endpoint is the search endpoint. And as we mentioned before, while describing JAPO, you can perform a search by either annotation name or artifact. And then when it comes to searching by annotation name, you can also perform two types of searches, which is either searching by simple name or by qualified name. Now, if we consider the case of our generated annotation, which we just saw now, let's say we want to perform a search of that by simple name, we will just go ahead here and enter the query value as just a few letters which are contained within the name of the annotation. So here we are entering GEN, which are the three first letters, but it could have been something else, such as this, for example. So we're gonna go ahead and click submit. And as you can see, what happens here, the search opens a new window, a separate window, where you have the result returned as JSON. Here, as you can see, we have the JSON response return. And let's just collapse a few sections and explain some. So as you can see, we mainly have three sections here in the JSON response. You have the request head, and then you have the result, and an additional flag which indicate whether or not the request went well. Now, starting with the request head, what you have here essentially is the requested information that you type in, which is mainly the URI here, which is API search, the query you entered, which is NER, which we just entered now, and now the by and page value, even though they can be entered through the URL, they also have default values. Now, additionally, you have additional information such as the date time of the request and then whether or not the request was valid. Now, in the results section, you have few subsections, which I'm going to also collapse here now to understand. First thing you have here is the total amount of annotations, which have a simple name containing our search query here. So we have 32. Now, which are those 32? We're going to see them in the item section. But before that, there is a page section indicating the pagination information of the return search result you have right here on this page. So what we get here is that the page size is always limited to 10. You will always have 10 entries per page. So that causes these results, the 32 results, to be paginated onto 4 pages, which we have here. We are currently on the first page, which is page 1, for a total amount of 4 pages, as you can see here. And then if you want to access the next page or navigate to the pages, you can use the next and previous links which appear here. Well, here you only have the next page because we don't have a previous page yet. When we move to the next page, we will then have a previous link that will show up and allow you to go back to the previous page as well. Now, in the item section, that's where you see, as I mentioned before, every single one of the annotations which contain this search query right here. So you have a bunch, as you can see, some of them with composed names. You have even this one here. So what we are looking for here is what the generated annotation, right, which we finally find here. But then, as you remember, when we were researching through Google, we found out that Java and then Lombok and Hibernate, all three offer the same annotation, which is confirmed here through this count here you see, which is count 3. So what you have here basically is, because you are performing a search by simple name, you are being returned the simple name containing that search query, the search query you entered, But additionally, it also tells you how many annotations, but in that case, qualified name annotations, have this simple name, the generated simple name. And at the same time, you're getting the information telling you in how many artifacts do you find those three annotations. So yeah, in this specific scenario, which is like an almost perfect case, we have three annotations for three artifacts, which really means that we have one annotation for one artifact. But there could be cases, okay, where you might have, for example, four annotations in three artifacts, because there are libraries where they actually have two different annotations within two separate packages, but then using the same simple name. And in most cases, one of those two is deprecated while the other is not. Okay, so this explains why for the search by simple name you might see those two sections of annotations and then artifact. Now, once you get this search result, because you performed here a search by simple name, you are required to go through an additional step before getting to the annotation you are already looking for. So here, as we have the generated annotation appearing as being part of three different artifacts and having three qualified name annotations carrying the same simple name, we now have to click on this link right here in order to see which are those three qualified name annotations. So this is another endpoint here, which you will see in the list of the endpoint to this Swagger Hub page, which returns you all qualified name annotations for the simple name of ID 256, which correspond to the generated simple name, the generated annotation simple name. You are not required to know those IDs, those are internal numbers. But of course, if you want, you can play with by entering random IDs there in the URL in order to get to see what you get. Okay, now here we have the three annotations as we were expecting. First one is the annotation from Jakarta, which is the equivalent of what we just saw now in Google. It was Java X because it was Java 8, now renamed to Jakarta. Now, besides that, we have also the generated annotation from Lombok, which we just saw also. So here, and now the third one definitely is the annotation we've been actually looking for, which is the one from Hibernate. As you can see, the qualified name here has all of the information. Now, additionally to the qualified name information of that annotation, which is here, you also have other information such as whether or not the annotation is deprecated already. And you also have the link to the Java doc of that annotation, which is actually the same link we saw just previously when we were looking on Google. We found the link to the search result. But as you can see here, JAPO gives you the same link from the search result itself, and you just have to click it and go straight to that page without having to go through several search results. You're gonna go and scroll through. Besides the Java.doc URL, we also have a link that allows you to view only this qualified name annotation. This is nothing but a repeat of the same information you see here. And why we have such an endpoint is because this can be very useful when you want to share information with other colleagues regarding one specific annotation. So you just have to copy this link and send it to them, and they will see, and they will have all the information regarding that annotation. And now, beside the information of the annotation, you also have the information of the artifact this annotation belongs to. And you already have detailed information about that because we wanted to provide as more precise information as possible so that you can recognize exactly which annotation you are dealing with. So here you have the group ID and artifact ID. Additionally to the name of the artifact, a description of the artifact, the latest version, the current version of the artifact, the release date of the latest or current version of the artifact. And then you have the Java.doc URL of the library itself, which is like the main Java.doc page where you can see information about all the content of the library. Yeah. And then you have the logo URL and also the repo URL, the Maven Central repo URL for this specific Maven dependency, as you can see here, with all the information that's needed. And here you have additional information that gives you the total amount of annotations contained within this artifact. Okay, so that's basically it when it comes to how to perform an annotation search with JAPO. Okay, now we've just performed a search by simple name. As you can see, when we were searching by simple name, we had to go through an additional step where we have to click the link to see the qualified name associated to a simple name. Now, if we want to perform a search by qualified name directly, so all we have to do is to add a dot within the name. But then we have to consider that why we need the dot here to perform the search by qualified name is because the dot is part of the qualified name. So while adding the dot, you have to make sure you place the dot at the right position according to the name of the annotation. So if I place the dot here and perform a search by annotation qualified name, as you can see, there is a high probability that I might have just an empty result return like this, nothing return, because the fully qualified name of the generated annotation in this case is org.hibernate.annotations.generated. So considering all that, we will enter the dot like this just before the first letter of the simple name. And with this, yes, we might have some result returned. And as you can see, we are being returned all annotations which have a qualified name containing .gener right here. So it makes sense to have way more results than what we were expecting for. So here we have something from Dagger, another one here, Jakarta generated, of course, because it contains .gener. You have persistent generated value, Lombok generated, a few others, and here um, we have the generated annotation from Hibernate. Now the difference here, as I already mentioned, is the link you have here will take you straight to the page describing all information of that specific annotation without having to go through the additional search step as we saw with the simple name. Okay, so that's it for the search by qualified name. You can also perform a search by artifact name. So in this case, Hibernate. So if I enter few letters from the name like this and I do search, as you can see here, is returning us all artifacts containing the three letters HIB. So then we have, so that returns us Hibernate core, Hibernate inverse, everything that contains HIB, and each one of them showing the total amount of annotations they have available. So that's basically it for the search endpoint. So I'll let you go through it and play with it and discover by yourself what are all the possibilities behind. Now, before we get to the start endpoint, I'm gonna quickly talk about the submission endpoint. Now, what the submission endpoint does here is we added it here only to allow you guys, you the users of JAPO, to let us know in case there's been a few annotations or one specific annotation which you don't see. Maybe something we forgot or something we haven't found out yet about, we haven't heard about yet, and we haven't entered it in our system yet. Okay, so you can just report that to us by specifying the group ID, artifact ID of the Maven artifact it belongs to. And then you can even list all the annotations that you think are missing, and we're gonna review that manually and decide whether we should add them to the database. So that's something I'm gonna let you check later. Now, when it comes to the stats endpoint, as I mentioned before, the stats endpoint really provides you with a certain level of transparency when it comes to available annotations and how they are organized, how they are named, and so on. So as you can see here, there is a list of options that are offered by the stats endpoint. Here, as you can see, the very first option returned here is the total amount of annotations, which is simply the total amount of annotations contained in the JAPO database. As you can see here, we have over 1,400 of them, and you have the possibility to scroll through all of them sorted alphabetically. And here you can use the pagination navigation to go through them all. Besides that, you have here, for example, the list of all deprecated annotations, no matter where or which libraries they belong to, which can be interesting also in case you are preparing to create a new annotation and you want to know whether or not there are other libraries having the same annotation name. And then you find out it's already deprecated in few other libraries, then yeah, you can make use of it. So that's one way it can help you deciding on the name of your custom annotation. So here you have all of them, all the deprecated annotation, regardless of the libraries they belong to. Besides that, you have also here all annotations from the JDK. We use the JDK all the time, but we cannot for sure list exactly all 11 annotations that are built in. So here you have them all. And besides that, you also have something really interesting that will help prevent naming collisions. Here is you have an option returning all annotations offered in multiple artifacts, like we just saw with the generated annotation. Here it says that three libraries or three Maven artifacts offered that annotation. So here you can see that same thing with many other annotations. So that's also something that can help you decide on the name of the annotation you are preparing to create. And there are a few other options. We're not gonna go through all of them all, so I'm gonna let you check each one of them and see how very helpful that can be. So that's it basically regarding JAPO. As a developer, we are usually always interested in knowing what's behind a product or how things are working in the background and so on. So regarding JAPO, we found it interesting to share that it was all written in Java 17, deployed in AWS Cloud, and making good use of Amazon OpenSearch text search capabilities. And that's it about JAPO, Java Annotations Repo. We hope you like it. We hope you make very good use of it. As time goes by, we will be adding more and more interesting features to expand the capabilities of JAPO. So please stay tuned and thank you for watching. Bye.